The municipal hearing room in East Haven wasn't big, but that morning it felt especially cold. The storm outside thrashed against the windows, streaking water across the panes in broken lines, casting warped shadows on the floor. People shuffled on the wooden benches, murmuring to one another in low voices, all glancing toward the front of the chamber with a growing sense of discomfort. Seated near the front at the defendant's table was Marcus Rios, age 41, a former Army tech specialist who'd served in multiple deployments. Time had softened his once strong build. His face carried the hard-earned wear of years under foreign skies. A rigid black support brace wrapped his left leg, and two well-used forearm crutches leaned against the table beside him. He sat up straight, calm but alert, dressed in a dark, worn version of his military blues. Not fresh, but pressed with care. Each button and patch spoke of service, pride, and sacrifice. Marcus wasn't in that courtroom for violence or deceit. He wasn't being accused of some scandal. His offense? Missing 2 civil court hearings tied to a cascade of parking fines. The root cause: he couldn't get around the city's crumbling and inaccessible bus system, which offered little help to someone who could barely walk unaided. But the court didn't care much for reasons. Overseeing the hearing was Judge Lenora Grant, infamous in this part of the state for her zero-tolerance courtroom style. She was the kind of judge who didn't blink at nuance. You either showed up or you didn't. Gray areas didn't concern her. At the city prosecutor's table, Elijah Brandt sat scrolling on his tablet, barely engaged. To him, Marcus's case was routine. Another missed appointment. Another small-time contempt charge. Another name on a docket to be checked off and forgotten. The courtroom was called to order. Judge Grant entered quickly, her robes sweeping behind her like some official curtain drawing closed. She adjusted her glasses and began scanning files. "Marcus Rios," she said crisply, "you are charged with contempt for failing to appear in court on 2 separate occasions. How do you plead?" Marcus pressed his palm against the table to steady himself and reached for a crutch. "Not guilty, Your Honor," he said clearly, though his voice wavered under the fluorescent lights. Grant didn't even look up from her folder. Excuses have already been submitted and filed. Contempt doesn't care about circumstances. You were instructed to appear. You didn't. I tried. Marcus began, but she raised a flat hand. "We're moving to sentencing," she said, voice clipped. "Your military background has been acknowledged. That will factor into the leniency." A ripple moved through the courtroom. But then she added sharply, "This court expects all defendants to face judgment like any other citizen. You will rise to receive your sentence, unaided." The tension in the room pulled tight. Marcus didn't respond. "I said stand, Mr. Rios," Judge Grant repeated, "or I will escalate the charge." The murmurs rose in the back. Even Brandt paused, his smirk fading. Under the desk, Marcus's injured leg twitched. Years earlier, an explosion in a convoy had torn through his vehicle in Kandahar. He'd been told walking unaided could damage his leg further, possibly even cause permanent collapse. Doctors had warned him plainly, avoid standing without help. Still, slowly, Marcus removed his crutches and laid them aside. The room went still. He placed his right foot flat. The leg shook but held. Then his left, braced and aching, bore down. His jaw clenched. His face tightened with pain. He swayed, every muscle screaming. Then his knee gave out. He crashed to the ground with a sickening sound, shoulder hitting first, then the side of his head striking the tile. The crutches skittered across the floor. Gasps erupted from the back. A woman screamed. A man in military pins clenched his fists. Even the prosecutor blinked in alarm. But Marcus didn't stop. He twisted, groaning, trying to push himself back up with shaking arms. "Because," he gasped through gritted teeth, "we don't quit." The bailiff, older, buzz-cut silver, stepped forward, but before he could help, the chamber doors flew open. A woman in scrubs burst in, eyes wide, face streaked with tears. "Don't touch him," she cried. It was Lena Rios, his younger sister and a trauma nurse. She dropped beside him, pulling him into her arms. "Marcus, stop. Please," she whispered, hugging his head. "You've done enough." Judge Grant said nothing. The gallery was silent, watching, not a fallen defendant anymore, but a soldier who never gave up. Then, slowly, one man stood in the gallery. Then two. Then a dozen. All veterans. All silent. Judge Grant pounded her gavel. Sit down. This is a court of law. They didn't move. A woman stepped forward, medals pinned to her shawl. Her voice trembled. My daughter died in uniform, she said. And if she were here, seeing this, she'd ask why you're humiliating a man who already gave more than most ever will. The room echoed with quiet agreement. One juror stood, then another. Soon half the jury was on their feet. Judge Grant stared around, lips parted, robe now seeming too heavy for her frame. A chant began, not shouted but firm. Respect him, respect him, respect him. Even Elijah Brandt sat back in his chair, shaking his head, lips drawn in guilt. Marcus sat up with Lena's help, breathing hard but steady. The judge stood, visibly rattled. Mr. Rios, she said, stepping off the bench. This court owes you an apology. The entire room fell silent. I gave an order without knowing what you've already endured. I see now. I failed in my duty to understand. She looked around. All charges against Marcus Rios are dropped permanently. His record will reflect only the honor he's earned. Applause rose like thunder. Then, in a moment that would be replayed across the country, she knelt in front of him and bowed her head. I am sorry, she said, and thank you. Marcus, still shaking, laid a hand on her shoulder. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds. A crowd had gathered, flags, signs, people holding pictures of their own loved ones in uniform. When Marcus rolled out in a wheelchair, the applause outside swelled, louder than anything inside. A reporter pushed through the crowd. Mr. Rios, what do you want people to understand? Marcus looked around, then up at the sky. I didn't rise because a judge ordered me to, he said. I rose because that's what we do. When we fall, we rise. He paused, voice thick with feeling. And sometimes, if we can't rise anymore, it just means we've already given everything. His words went viral. From council halls to classrooms, the conversation changed. Accessibility laws were re-examined. City policies rewritten. No judge would ever again demand a disabled vet to stand. A few months later, officials from the Federal Office of Veterans Advocacy came to his door. Mr. Rios, said a tall woman in a burgundy suit, would you accept an appointment as a national ambassador for veterans' rights? Marcus blinked. I'm not a politician. You don't have to be, she said. Just keep being who you are. He accepted, and he traveled. He spoke. He inspired. Cities built ramps where stairs had stood for decades. Courthouses added proper accommodations. Veteran stories were heard, not just on Veterans Day, but every day. In front of the same courthouse, a statue now stood. A soldier on one knee, holding two crutches crossed like blades. Its base read, Courage isn't standing tall. It's standing again, even when broken. Marcus rested his hand on the statue's bronze surface. Beside him, Lena whispered, You changed everything. He replied softly, I didn't do it alone. Then, as sunlight broke through the morning sky, he saluted, not the monument, but the memories, the sacrifices. Not whole, but unbroken, forever standing.